In an age where politics are anticipated in the same sense as sporting events, society treads a thin line between integrity and corruption. We attach ourselves to a political figure we can relate to most, and subsequently, our identity soon becomes indiscernible from theirs. What starts innocently enough as following a person you believe in soon becomes muddled with pride until it no longer matters what we believe. It takes strength to admit you could be led astray. More strength than most people display. I've always been moved by the story of Beethoven's Third Symphony. It was a dedication to Napoleon Bonaparte, the man Beethoven saw as a defender of democracy and the future of Europe. Then Napoleon crowned himself Emperor of France, implying that not only should he have the power of a king, but the power to choose that king as well. Beethoven had a choice to make. Go down with the ship, or swallow his pride and admit he was wrong. He chose the latter, scratching out Napoleon's name, renaming the piece Eroica, and writing in the dedication what translates roughly to celebrate the memory of a great man. We've seen this blind faith be taken to the extreme before in the case of the Jonestown Massacre. Preacher Jim Jones grew his following into a cult and moved the group to Guyana, where they established Jonestown. As suspicions arose back in the United States, the group became more militant, convinced that Jones would lead them to God. Though there were skeptics, the resulting mass suicide would surprise even the most wary, as Jones had convinced his followers to drink Kool-Aid laced with cyanide to enter heaven. Jim Jones was praised as a messianic figure, seen by most as a good man, but the pedestal he was placed on cost 918 lives. This hailing of normal men as godlike figures has cost lives before, as we've seen with the rule of Emperor Hirohito. The Japanese ruler was hailed as a god in his own right, and was worshipped by his subjects. As World War II unfolded, of course they would trust his judgment, ignorant of his fallibility. The now infamous kamikaze pilots, known for their sacrificial attacks, gave their lives in service to this idea of God. They died for the greed and lust of mortal men under the guise of some holy quest. This morphing of politics into some spectator sport has diluted our moral judgment. It's become too easy to pick a side and, of course, a favorite player, or in this case, politician. While there's nothing inherently wrong with aligning yourself with a figure, it must be an extension of a strong foundation. You must be willing to turn your back on this person when they no longer meet your criteria, rather than serving up excuses for them. Defending them to protect your own pride is basic self-preservation, a remnant of our animalistic past in which instinct could be the difference between life and death. However, we are far from our past selves, and there is limited place for instinct in society. Unlike most animals, we have these gifts of reflection and hindsight, and to act on instinct alone would be an insult to our humanity. I long for a world in which we may swallow our pride in favor of our morality. One in which we understand that politicians and celebrities are susceptible to the same mistakes as you and I. More importantly, I long for a world in which we understand that just because you followed someone at one point does not mean you have to follow them to the grave. Instead of the typical mental gymnastics done to excuse wrongdoing, we should instead revoke our support and demand change. Thank you.